Hello again. I'm Bill Stewart, co-founder of Teleios. Welcome to this verse-by-verse study on the book of First Peter. We don't know the exact date of its writing, probably in the 60s AD, generally after the Pauline epistles. And it was written by Peter to those in North and Central Asia Minor who seemed to have a large Jewish component and appeared to be pretty immature Christians. They seem to misbehave a good bit, even within the church. And a major theme of the book is dealing and comforting them with their persecution in general for doing both things, good and bad, but also indicating that if they didn't do bad things, they might be less persecuted. So Peter is really tries very hard in this book to comfort them, but also admonish them for their behavior. We're in verse 13 today of chapter 3, and he's continuing on this theme of how they behave. And in verse 10 said, finishing a quote from Psalm 34, 12 to 15, that the eyes or the face of the Lord is against those who do bad, but pays attention to those who are doing good, which he wants them to do. And he goes in 13, who's going to harm you if you're followers of that which is good? And in 14, he continues, but if you suffer for righteousness' sake, happy are you. But if, and you do not be afraid of their terror, neither be troubled. So he seemed to be indicating that if you are persecuted, then happy are you, and because you have stood up for the Lord and you are making a testimony and you have suffered as Christ has suffered, and that's an element of I wouldn't say pride, but that you've gone through an experience for God that Christ went through himself. And of course, God has suffered and tolerated patiently man in general for thousands of years. However, it says in 12, who will harm you? So how do you put those two together? We know from other verses like Romans 8:17 that if you're a Christian, you will suffer. The world hates us and it is against us. I think here you can make 2 points. One is that Peter's making a general principle, as Scripture often does, not a promise, saying that if you're living a good life, a truthful life, you're trying to serve man, do good to all man, you're going to limit hugely how you suffer. You're going to avoid all sorts of terrible problems if you're trying to be helpful and honest and good up front to other people. Though at times there may come, for some of us, persecution. So a general principle. Now he also may be talking about heaven, as it does in Matthew 10:28. Don't be afraid of those who can harm you on earth, but be afraid of those who will cause you to stumble and that you be cast into hell. So eternally, nobody can harm us. Nobody can lay a claim against us. We're eternally secure with God by faith in Jesus Christ for the forgiveness of sins. Last point here is that it says that followers. And in general, the word follower relates to those in the Gospels. They had to literally follow Christ on earth, his disciples and the other people trying to learn from Jesus and expressing faith, because they did not have the Spirit or the regeneration. So they were like the Israelites in the desert who had to follow Moses, the type of Christ, the representation of God. Moses on earth was a representation of God and leading Israel, the theocracy that was set up over Israel by God. Likewise, people followed Christ in faith in the Gospels. We don't